Labor MP Michael Danby is an activist in foreign affairs debates, and he's just joined one today in the House of Representatives, demanding the Foreign Minister explain why she's open to including the regime of Bashar al-Assad in a political solution to the Syrian crisis. Mr Danby, who's a prominent friend and supporter of Israel, is opening debate on another front too. He thinks Australia's military commitment to Iraq should be reviewed or even withdrawn in light of some of the recent developments in the Middle East. We spoke to him a moment ago. Michael Danby, you've been involved in a parliamentary debate on a motion to try and highlight what you're calling deficiencies, are they, in Australia's foreign policy approach to Syria and to Iran. What's the problem that you have with the Foreign Minister?
I think there's unanimous support in the Parliament for action against Daesh, the killers from IS in eastern Syria. But we think, particularly I've been pushing the fact that the Foreign Minister has gone too far in her rapprochement and her new friendship on behalf of Australia with Iran. The proposal to share defence cooperation was knocked back by Western defence ministers. The proposal for intelligence sharing and for opening Iranian consulates is still up in the air. I don't support them.
Is that the settled position of the Labor Party, or this is just Michael Danby MP?
This is it's not the settled position of the Labor Party. We wanted a full debate on this. Tanya Plibersek called for that this morning, and we'll be putting it back into the Parliament next week. Tanya advised me this morning. So if the Foreign Minister is not willing to debate this serious turn in Australian foreign policy on Iran and Syria, the Labor Party will be bringing it back for discussion every week until she does.
So Iran is there, Russia is there, and all roads inevitably lead to Syria for Australia. What's wrong with the pursuit of a political solution?
Well, first of all, it's unethical to support a dictator. We didn't support him 6 months ago, who has killed 200,000 of his own people, mostly with barrel bombs dropped on Syrian cities over the last 2 years. I know people don't like to discuss ethics or principles, but that's a very sound basis on which we shouldn't be supporting Assad.
Not even on a transitional, temporary basis?
The problem, Greg, is that the people who are fleeing out of Syria into Lebanon, into Turkey, into all of the surrounding countries, the Sunni Muslim majority will not be involved in a provisional government if he's involved.
All right, you've also put Australia's Iraqi army training mission on the line as part of this case that you're trying to build. What are you saying there? If evidence is found of Iran's complicity with Iraq, Australia should get its troops out of Iraq. Is that your call?
Our autonomous sanctions, I've just said this in the Parliament this morning, legally prevent Australia, and I hope people in Department of Foreign Affairs and Defence are listening to this, do not permit Australia to have military or intelligence cooperation with Iran or Syria. Legally forbidden by existing legislation on autonomous sanctions. And I think, as a matter of practicality, that Australian Army trainers and soldiers are some of the best in the world. We'd be better off training the Kurds in northern Iraq, who are just a few kilometres from that centre of evil in Raqqa, where Daesh is based. This is a physical danger to Australians because we've just learnt that al-Kambodi, the Daesh programmer, has been in contact with some of these poor, deluded young people in Australia who've been attacking police stations.
So just to be clear, are you saying the Taji mission, as it operates right here, right now, should cease?
It's my personal view that it is in violation of existing Australian legislation. And I think it would be more effective. So that's on a matter of principle and legislation. The second issue is of practicality. Only the Kurds seem to want to fight. They want to fight Daesh. They've been terribly treated by that group. We saw what happened to them in Kobani. It would be more effective use of Australian military power, which is considerable and very effective to get our friends. I'm not suggesting Australian military involvement in that part of the world again. I understand, of course, people are very reluctant after the over-involvement of Bush and Rumsfeld, but there is an effective way of proceeding, I think, via our Kurdish friends.
So it's a doomed mission as it currently stands. You don't think the Iraqi security forces can stand and fight enough to defend their own country?
Well, I'd like it debated in the Australian Parliament by our Defence and Foreign Affairs representatives that they can. We saw disgracefully hundreds of millions of dollars of military equipment abandoned in Mosul in the face of 200 members of IS. The whole Iraqi army up and fled. It doesn't happen with the Kurds. They fought to the last man in that little town of Kobani until they had a sort of like the Alamo, until they had a column of not Texans but other Kurds from Syria arrive to support them.
And do you hope to persuade the Labor Party of your view about that mission?
Well, we're all meeting someone from the Iraqi Provisional Government this week who is here to precisely make those pleas to the opposition and indeed the government. And I think we should give the Kurds a good listening, because that's an effective way, as I say, of eliminating a threat to Australians. What's going on in Raqqa is where all of this stuff is being programmed. And I think the Kurds, there are 25,000 of them untrained and unarmed, just a few kilometres from Raqqa. I don't suggest that we have Australian military involvement, but our Kurdish friends are just too eager to take on the terrible barbarians of Daesh.
OK, and just finally, Michael Danby, on a domestic political matter, did your heart sink when you saw some Ipsos polling today, which would suggest that the Turnbull ascendancy or ascension has had a powerful political impact?
Not for a minute. As soon as people who are all the baristas in my electorate and other places start realising that Malcolm Turnbull's in favour of terminating their penalty allowances, those opinion polls will start to change. Of course, he's got sort of a sugar rush in the beginning. He's a nice enough fellow, but it's his policies. As we say in Melbourne after the Melbourne show, new show bag, same content.
All right. Michael Danby, thank you.
Thanks, Greg.